Welcome back everyone to another Archetype review. I'm Frizz, and today we're going to be covering the Eldritch Archer Archetype from the Advanced Player's Guide, which offers some really interesting options. It's all about imbuing magic into your bow in a similar fashion to how Magi do, even if the actual effects are a little bit different. It's a very fun archetype with a lot of really interesting and unique options, so I hope that you learn something new today, or get an idea from a character from this video. Let's just jump into things, shall we? The Eldritch Archer dedication is actually the first dedication feat on this channel that is not available at level 2. In this case, Eldritch Archer is available at level 6 and requires that you're an expert in at least one bow. This is actually the bow weapon group, meaning that it doesn't just apply with a short bow or a long bow. It actually works with crossbows as well, so you can use a crossbow with pretty much every single feat from the Eldritch Archer. Upon taking this dedication, you get the ability to cast one cantrip from a tradition of your choice. Unless you're already a spellcaster, in which case you have to choose the tradition that you can already cast. So if you are a wizard taking this dedication, then you have to choose an arcane cantrip. This cantrip does have some restrictions on it, since it has to require a spell attack roll. As an example, Disrupt Undead doesn't have a spell attack roll, so you can't choose it, but Produce Flame does have a spell attack roll, so you can grab it. These spells are innate spells, and you become trained in spell attack rolls and DCs for that tradition if you weren't already, and your spellcasting modifier is Charisma, like normal for innate spells. In addition to this cantrip, you get access to the Eldritch Shot action. You spend 3 actions while wielding a bow to cast a 1-action or 2-action spell that requires a spell attack roll, and then you put that magic into a piece of ammunition, like a arrow or a bolt. Then you fire the ammunition as part of this 3-action activity. You don't actually roll the spell attack part of your spell at all, and instead you use the result of your bow attack to determine if the spell hits. So basically, instead of rolling twice, once to hit with the bow and once to hit with the spell, you just hit with the bow, and then, you do the damage as normal for a hit or a critical hit, depending on the spell that you cast. It's really nice because now you can just not care about how accurate you are with your spells, and just focus on accuracy with your bow, which is going to be a lot easier to increase your accuracy with your bow than it is with your spells. You can't really go wrong with whatever spell that you pick, but I strongly recommend about not grabbing the Tanglefuck cantrip, because while technically it does work, it doesn't improve your damage very much at all and doesn't give you much versatility. I generally recommend trying to get a cantrip that allows you to get a damage type that you don't normally have with a bow, since being able to deal fire damage or cold damage on top of your normal damage from your bow will help you a lot if you have to deal with a creature that is resistant to piercing damage. The Eldritch Archer gets access to all of the normal spellcasting feats that spellcasting archetypes get access to, but you will be getting a little bit more out of the gate from the basic spellcasting bonuses than most classes, considering that you get them about 4 levels later. Upon taking this feat at level 8, you immediately get a 1st level spell slot, a 2nd level spell slot, and a 3rd level spell slot. Also, you get to pick one of those spells to become a signature spell, and you have learned one spell from each spell level. I generally recommend grabbing spells that you will be able to use with Eldritch Shot, since that allows you to do some really scary damage a couple of times a day. The reason why I say that you get more every level is normally you get a 1st level spell slot at level 4, then a 2nd level 6, and a 3rd level spell slot at level 8, but because you can only take this once you're level 8, you immediately get all of those benefits right out of the gate, so it's a little bit different. But it's pretty much just as good as normal basic spellcasting feats from every spellcasting archetype. And those are good, because you can either pick a damaging one, or you can try and pick up some utility, which utility is never going to be bad to have on a character. Enchanting Arrow is actually an incredible feat. For 2 actions, you make a shot against someone with a bow. If you hit, the target takes 2d6 mental damage, and if you critically hit, they become stunned 1. This damage increases to 3d6 if you have a greater striking rune, and 4d6 if you have a major striking rune. I'm not actually sure if the bonus damage actually doubles on a critical hit, because it's a little bit weird because it's an additional effect, so I don't know if it would be included in how critical hits double damage. If it does, this is a absolutely insane feat, because bonus damage is very welcome, but getting the ability to stun anyone on a critical hit without a save is insane. For certain classes, like, say, fighters, critical hits are pretty common, so this feat can be incredible at locking down opponents over a fight, because if you can reliably get someone stunned one, then they're not going to be able to do nearly as much in a fight as they would be able to otherwise. I mean it when I say this. Magic Arrow is a genuinely weird feat. Upon taking this feat, you pick 3 types of common magical ammunition of 4th level or lower. As a free action, you turn a non-magical arrow or bolt into one of the types of magical ammunition that you know. As long as you fire that arrow before the end of your turn, it works exactly like as if you had bought it normally. If that magic type of ammunition needed an action to activate it, you still have to activate it. Also, you can turn ammunition into a type of magical ammunition even if it doesn't exist normally. As, say, an example, climbing bolts are normally only available in bolt form to be fired from a crossbow, but with this feat, you can make a normal arrow into those effects that can be fired out of a bow. As you level up, you can pick this feat again if you want, getting 3 more types of magical ammunition to choose from, but the level cap of level 4 never increases. I encourage you to look through the whole list yourself to see what stands out, but to me, Shining Ammunition, Climbing Bolts, and Viper Arrows stand out as being the exceptional ones. Most magical ammunition of this level doesn't scale particularly well, since if it includes a static DC, then it quickly becomes irrelevant. I recommend grabbing ones that don't have a DC involved. Continuing the theme of Eldritch Archers having really special arrows, Precious Arrow allows for you to spend an action to make some ammunition have the essence of cold iron or silver. As long as you fire the ammunition that turn, it counts as that material. At least level 14, you can also choose to make the ammunition count as being adamantine. This is really useful if you know that you're going to be running into a lot of creatures that are weak to special materials, but I personally find that that doesn't happen all too often unless you're fighting a lot of devils or fae. And if you know that you're going to be in that situation, you can always just buy ammunition that has special qualities to it, and then you don't have to spend an action. So really, it's up to you whether or not you feel like this will be worth it for you. Expert Eldritch Archer spellcasting gives you a bunch of stuff, even if it is the basic normal stuff that spellcasting archetypes can give you. You become an expert in spell attacks and DCs of your particular tradition, and you get a 4th level spell slot, in addition to learning a single 4th level spell. You get an additional signature spell, and at level 14 you get a 5th level spell slot, and at level 16 you get a 6th level spell slot. And of course you learn 1 spell per spell level. More spells is always going to be great, and I still do generally recommending grabbing spells that can work with Eldritch Shot, but you can absolutely grab some utility spells if that works better for your character concept. Seeker Arrow is an interesting feat that makes you much better at shooting around obstacles. You make a bow strike as a single action, and the ammunition curves around corners and obstacles. You ignore any concealed condition that the target has, and all cover that they're benefiting from. This can be useful in crowded spaces, especially since shooting through your allies gives cover, and it can help a lot with your accuracy. I kind of wish that there was some kind of accuracy buff with this ability, since you're literally shooting a homing arrow, but as it is, it's still really good. Especially because it has no frequency limitation, or any other traits like a flourish trait, meaning that you can technically do this on every single shot in a round. Seeker Arrow is an interesting feat that makes you much better at shooting around obstacles. You make a bow strike as a single action, and the ammunition curves around corners and obstacles. You ignore any concealed condition that the target has, and all cover that they're benefiting from. This can be useful in crowded spaces, especially since shooting through your allies gives cover, and it can help a lot with your accuracy. I kind of wish that there was some kind of accuracy buff with this ability, since you're literally shooting a homing arrow, but as it is, it's still really good, especially because it has no frequency limitation or any other traits like a flourish trait, meaning that you can technically do this on every single shot in a round. Phase Arrow is a crazy, crazy feat that I love so much that you can only use once a day. As a single action once a day, you make a bow strike against someone who is observed or hidden to you. This shot travels in a perfectly straight line, passing through any non-magical barriers in its path, although magical barriers do stop it. So if you're in an area with magic walls, this isn't going to work nearly as well. This attack roll ignores all cover, the concealed condition, the hidden condition, and any circumstance bonus to AC from using a shield. On top of that, you also get a +4 status bonus to hit someone if they're wearing armor, since the armor does basically nothing to stop your projectile, meaning that you basically just negate the bonus to their AC from armor. Also, they can't reduce the damage from your shot with a shield block reaction unless their shield is magical, since your arrow just goes through their shield, so they cannot block it. At this level, if someone has a shield, it's pretty likely to be a magical shield, but still, it's pretty good. This is a super, super fun feat, even though it can only be used once a day, because who doesn't want to shoot a phase arrow or incorporeal arrow that just goes straight through walls? If you ever desperately need to hit someone and probably crit them, this is the ability to use from this archetype. Arrow of Death is, in my eyes, the true capstone of this archetype, because it is a genuinely crazy, crazy feat. As 3 actions once in a day, you fire an arrow or bolt towards someone. If you hit, you deal an additional 10d10 precision damage, and if you critically hit them, they must succeed on a Fortitude save versus your class DC or spell DC, and if they fail, they immediately die. This save does have the death and incapacitation traits, which means that if someone's higher than your level, it's going to be much, much harder to instantly kill them, since they would have to critically fail to actually fail. Even if you just critically hit them and they succeed on their save, they might just die anyway, because you're going to be doubling that 10d10 precision damage on top of the normal damage from your attack, so you're going to be doing a horrific amount of damage to this person. Master Eldritch Archer spellcasting works exactly the same as any other archetype feat that grants master spellcasting benefits. Become a master in spell attacks and spell DCs for your magical tradition, and you get a 7th level spell slot. Also, you get to pick a 3rd signature spell. Once you hit level 20, you get a 8th level spell slot. In general, this is good, since spells are good. There isn't really a lot for me to talk about here, because it's pretty simple and on the nose, and very, very good. Impossible Volley is the last feat in the Eldritch Archer, and it becomes available at level 20, although rangers and fighters can get access to it at level 18. It's another 3-action ability that actually requires that you're using a weapon with a reload of 0 and the volley trait, meaning that it literally only works with longbows and composite longbows. You then choose a 10-foot burst somewhere at least 30 feet away from you. You then make attacks with that weapon against every single person in that burst at a -2 penalty. While these attacks do technically increase your multiple attack penalty, you don't actually increase it until after you finish making all of your attacks, meaning that you're not actually going to have to deal with your multiple attack penalty because this takes all 3 actions. This can be really, really useful with dealing with large groups of enemies, which is actually something this archetype does struggle a bit with, because basically none of its other abilities can be used on more than one enemy at once. But, if I'm being honest, I don't know why this feat is here. It's not magical at all, which is the point of the entire archetype. It is pretty good though, so I won't complain too much about it. It should be pretty clear by this point that I really, really like this archetype. It did lose a little bit of its identity whenever the Magus came out, since that is a whole class based around putting magic into their weapons, but the Eldritch Archer has a lot of abilities that Magi can't replicate. Magi are all about putting spells into their weapons, but they aren't necessarily about giving their arrows special properties, which is something that really the Eldritch Archer is all about. No one else can create magical ammunition at will, or shoot arrows filled with necromancy so much they can instantly kill people. It's a really fun and flexible archetype, and I encourage you to check it out. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you did, liking or subscribing down below would tell the YouTube overlords that my content is worth literally anything, so I'd really appreciate it. If you have any constructive criticism or feedback, then I'd love to hear it down below. I am always trying to make these videos better, so any kind of feedback would be really helpful, because I'm generally not very good at actually spotting the flaws in my own work, so getting you guys to tell me that is the best way to improve this content. Until I see you next, live a wonderful life.